So what were the pollsters trying to tell us? Or were they trying to manipulate us? And I think it's the latter. Larry Kudlow, for example, the former Fox business, I think he still is at Fox, he pointed out that when he examined the New York Times and the Washington Post polls, they were deliberately not counting people who surveyed that they were Trump voters in 2024. That was half the country. They were only polling about a third. Think of that.
That's American historian and conservative commentator Victor Davis Hanson shredding establishment media's latest propaganda campaign, fake polls designed to make you believe Trump is losing ground when the exact opposite is true. Welcome to Nerk News, I'm Nerkish, and if you've been paying attention, you've probably noticed the media's pushing their latest talking point. Trump is tanking in the polls. But Hanson isn't buying it, and frankly, neither should you, because what he just broke down is exactly what conservatives and Trump supporters have been saying all along. These polls aren't just wrong, they're rigged. They're a tool designed to demoralize Trump's base and boost Democrat fundraising. Here's Hanson explaining how they're doing it, by deliberately undercounting half the country.
We've touched on polls before, but I don't think I've seen anything quite as egregious in pollsters' bias as recently when they apparently or supposedly or purportedly surveyed the first 100 days of Donald Trump and the public reaction. Almost immediately, headlines blared. Worst first 100 days in history. Trump drops from 52 to 41. Everybody was confounded because the economic news was pretty good. Job growth was just spectacular, over 170,000 jobs. Inflation was down. Energy prices were down. Corporate profits were up. There was a movement on the trade question. Ukraine still, there was no bad news except the controversy and chaos of a counter-revolution. But here's another thing. There were analyses after each of the 2016, the 2020, and the 2024 elections about the accuracy of polls post facto the election. And we learned that they were way off in 2016. They said they had learned their lessons. They were way off in 2020. They said that they learned their lesson, and they were way off in 2024.
You know, it's funny how the same people who missed the mark in 2016, 2020, and 2024 are suddenly expecting us to trust them again. Hanson lays it out plain as day. Pollsters are stacking the deck. They're undersampling Trump voters, misrepresenting who actually showed up in 2024, and pushing headlines designed to create panic. And here's the kicker. If these polls actually adjusted their samples to reflect the real 50% of voters who backed Trump in 2024, his approval rating wouldn't be scraping 41%. It would jump 13 to 16 points, putting him well above 50%. Just take a look at what's happening now. Poll after poll claiming Trump's in freefall, when in reality the economy's improving, energy prices are down, and Trump's approval is holding strong among the people who actually put him in office. And as Hanson points out, this is nothing new. Here's him explaining why these fake polls are about manufacturing momentum, not measuring it.
Do we remember that poll? It was the one poll that came out the night before the 2024 election. They said that Kamala Harris would win by 4 points, and they said it was beyond the margin of error. And one of the polls said it's her race to lose. She lost by 1.5 points. They were 5.5 points. Did they apologize? No. Here they are again. And David Plouffe, one of the directors of the Harris campaign, just recently came out and said, well, we had all these inside polls we never disclosed, but not one of them had Harris ever ahead of Trump. The inside polls don't lie because you pay somebody to tell you the truth. Nothing will get you fired and lose income quicker than to lie about a poll so that your candidate will be happy and rely on your false information. People don't pay for that kind of stuff. So in other words, they knew the whole time, the Harris campaign, that 15 of those 20 polls, 19 polls, that all had Harris winning the election, they were all false. Of course, they never said anything. And why are they way off? Because liberal pollsters, and that's the majority of people who do these surveys, believe that if they create artificial leads for their Democratic candidates, it creates greater fundraising and momentum.
I mean, Hanson absolutely nails it here. These aren't honest mistakes. They're deliberate psychological tactics. NPR, PBS, CBS, Marist, all pumping out numbers that don't match reality, just like they did with Harris. They had her up by 4 points the night before the election. She lost by 1.5, and as Hanson pointed out, her own campaign knew those polls were fake. Their private data told them she was losing the entire time. The real polls, the ones without an agenda, show Trump ahead. But you'll never hear that on CNN because they'd rather have people like Ana Navarro scream about his overwhelming unpopularity over and over again as if repeating it makes it true.
This should be the official platform of the Democratic Party.
That's not what I just said.
That's
not what I just said.
But I'm hearing you. Most Americans want this guy.
You know what? You're actually wrong. Donald Trump in the most recent polls is underwater on the handling of immigration for the first time. And it's not because of the way he's handling the border. CNN poll, all of the polls. Go read.
Okay.
He is underwater, and it's because
I'm sure Twitter will.
No, it's what, and I'll tell you why. Because people are listening, and people are hearing about these awful cases, and people are seeing their kids' teachers get deported, and their kids' soccer coaches get deported, and the person who takes care of their elderly parent, and they're seeing U.S. citizens who have been detained without due process.
And there it is, the media's go-to strategy: say it loud enough and hope nobody looks into the details. Navarro's claim that all of the polls show Trump underwater is the exact kind of lazy, dishonest spin that Hanson just exposed. She won't mention the undersampling or the non-response bias. She won't mention how the same polls she's pushing have been dead wrong for nearly a decade. But people are waking up. Trump supporters and conservatives see these fake numbers for what they are. Just another tool of the establishment trying to gaslight America into thinking Trump is losing. But let me know what you think. Are these fake polls fooling anyone, or are conservatives more fired up than ever? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That stuff really does help us out. Until then, this has been Nerk News. Thanks for watching. Bye.